Francesca Gilbert.
Good morning.
Been with the company 35 years. And you must be the record holder now.
I think I'm pretty close to the record holder. I feel like there are one or two people.
How about Nancy? She's up there too, right?
I think Nancy Story is a little more veteran than me, and maybe Mason Harvey.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's old people, so.
You're not old.
Not now.
You don't look old anyway. That's the key. All right, well, tell us a little about yourself. I mean, we know you've been doing this at least 35 years, and maybe a little bit about the real estate business, how things are going.
Sure. So my funny story is that I lived in California. I went to Occidental College, and I got a job at Bullock's, which is now Macy's, at their corporate headquarters. I did personnel, and we had an earthquake. This is way back in 1987, 88-ish. And I think it was Northridge, if I remember correctly. And one day I went into personnel, and they had a bunch of body bags. And I said, being me, I said, so what are we doing with all these? We're going to store them in case we have another earthquake. I'm like, why would we need to store them? Well, because personnel is going to be in charge of putting people in body bags. And I'm like, that sounds terrible. I'm not like the job for me. So I called my dad, and my dad, being Italian, said, come home, which I did. And I spent the entire summer laying in the pool. And my dad finally came up to me one day and said, if I pay for you to get your real estate license, will you go to real estate school? I said, sure. So I went to real estate school in the morning, and I laid out in the afternoon, so it's a great combination. And in September of 1988, I got my real estate license. I joined what was then Americana Group, Better Homes and Gardens.
Yes.
On the official date, we've determined is September 8th, 1988.
Wait, do you still have the card, Better Homes and Gardens?
I do. I do still have the card. I still have my original contract that was
Nice.
printed on paper that came from one of those dot matrix printers with the little loops on the side.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, I still have that. So when I first started in real estate, we used books to show houses with pictures that were the size of, like a Match.com.
One picture per listing?
Yes, one picture per listing. We carried the books with us everywhere.
Every 2 weeks they came out, right?
Every 2 weeks.
I remember those days.
We had lockbox keys that looked like ancient,
Jail
keys.
Yeah.
Some sort, the kind you see in Disney where they let the pirate out. And that's how my real estate career started. I carried a beeper from Vegas Instant Page, which is no longer in business. And I graduated to the same phone that Christian Bale has in American Psycho, the big brick phone.
Brick phone, yeah, or Wall Street, yeah.
Great, because not only could you call people on it if you had a satellite, but you could hit someone else.
It was a defense mechanism.
So it worked perfectly.
So this is like scared straight into real estate. You see the body bags, you go home, your father buys it, and you're scared right into real estate and took off.
It definitely was not my initial trajectory. I thought I was going to be a college professor in journalism and English. That's what my degree is in, and that didn't roll out quite that way. But honestly, after 35 years, which was literally just a couple weeks ago, I don't know that I would want it any other way.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I knew part of that, but I didn't know the whole story, so that was very cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a fun ride and an interesting start to probably what shouldn't have been my career.
Right. Yeah. But sometimes when you it wasn't mine when I was going to college either, but then I got introduced and I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Did you, when you first got in, did you think, you know what? You can do pretty well in this business?
When I first started, the market was very different. I think our average price point, I want to say, was $87,000. So back then, not that you couldn't do well, but it wasn't quite what it is today.
Right.
And you had to, everybody has to work, but we had to certainly work a little harder to do as well as we can now. But very quickly, I learned that it was far better than my job at Express, where I had to fold sweaters using a clipboard so that they lined up a certain way. And then they wanted me to vacuum, and I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I don't vacuum my own house, but I know I vacuum the store. So it was definitely...
I can see you saying that.
I did say that, yes. My career at Express lasted an entire 8 days.
And what was it called before that?
It was actually, I worked for Macy's.
Macy's, right.
Which was Bullock's. But I also worked for Express, which still exists. FYI, they did come steal some shirts out of my closet. They told me that they were back. I think they're still the same, but anyways. Yeah, so that's really how I started. That's the honest to gosh truth.
Now, and what's interesting is since you've been doing it all here in Las Vegas, I mean, Vegas has, you just mentioned 87,000, the average sale price in 88. Now it's almost 500,000.
I think Garland said 517 on Tuesday was our office average sales price.
Crazy.
Yes, and it's not only been 35 years in Las Vegas, but I've been with this company for 35 years. So I've, as I said to, I think to Troy and JT the other day, I've survived 3 franchise changes, 3 CEO changes, so many managers, I can't even count the number of managers, and lots of other interesting events in the real estate market. You know, ups, downs, depressions, recessions, everything anybody can throw out at you, but it's been an amazing ride, and I personally wouldn't have done it any other way. I like having been here for a long time. I'm not a switcher. I'm just not that person.
You stick with it.
I don't like to go to one company and then another company. It just doesn't work with my personality, and it's not saying it's wrong. It just doesn't work for me.
Plus, you got to create the momentum again. People don't realize that.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
And you know, as one of my friends says, if I wanted a real job, I'd get one. I don't want to create work for myself.
Right, and the great thing about real estate, you're self-employed, so you really get paid what you believe you're worth, and you've had some great years ever since I've been here.
Based on how much you work,
right?
So if you don't work, then your pay is commensurate to the fact that you don't work as hard as you could. If you work, then your pay will be very reflective of that, and if you do good work, your pay is reflective of that as well. Does that make sense?
Definitely. You know, I always tell the story in Success Series that when I started in 1985, not only was I the only person in my 20s, I was the only person in my 20s, 30s to mid 40s in my office. Literally, everybody in my office was at least twice my age. Did you have
I agree, yes. I started when I was 23. I drove a Trans Am. I had to trade it in for a Honda Accord, probably the saddest day of my entire life.
Wow.
And everybody else in my office was over 40, which
Did
of
you have
course
a big
back
bird
then.
on the top of your
No, that's a branding.
Oh, sorry.
So, but everybody in my office was over 40, which of course at the time
was ancient.
Now, of course, we know 40 is nothing.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, especially, you're right. Spring chicken.
Spring chicken, I'm wrong with it, absolutely.
So, I mean, even from like when you drive out to listing appointments now, there are places that weren't there when you, the place has changed so much.
The city ended, and if you're not in Las Vegas, you may not know exactly where this is, but the city ended at Decatur as a west border, and really once you went past Decatur, there was nothing. There was mafia dirt, which is where the bodies could or could not have been buried.
A lot of holes out there.
Yeah, and just stuff just wasn't there. I mean, now you drive through Las Vegas, and not only is the Strip thriving because there are so many hotels and so many corporate entities that own hotels, but there are so many other businesses. We have Ford plant. We have the Speedway. We have so many big
sports.
Yeah, we have sports. I mean, back then, I remember being told we would never have a football team because of the gaming commission.
Right.
Well, go Raiders, right? I mean, so it's so different than it was back then, and real estate is so different. I mean, when I started, we had a one-page contract, and we had what, millennials will have to look this up, NCR paper, which was the little carbon paper that you put underneath the piece so that somebody could have a copy of what you were writing. Wow, I mean, if that doesn't date me, I don't know what does.
Press hard.
Steve Carell, call me, I could be on The Office. We had NCR paper, we had really just the craziest stuff. I mean, our big market in '91, which was a crazy exciting market, required us to drive around seeing if an agent would put a yard sign in, because then we knew there was a listing.
Right.
And we would knock on the door and say, hi, I see your yard sign, can I show your house? And who knew if it even matched what your clients wanted, but you had to give it a shot.
That's crazy.
That's the old days.
It really, I know, and I was going to take my phone, but we're using my phone, it's right there. Now you can do everything through your phone.
Everything.
It was absolutely crazy.
iPad, phone, your laptop, whatever, you do not have to use a piece of paper, I don't think, if you don't want to.
Now, I remember remember Star Trek, the original one with James Teeker?
Of course.
Now it's like Star Trek. You talk to your phone, it does things for you, sends emails, and make sure you read them first, because sometimes Siri doesn't always agree.
Don't wear the red shirt, because then you're expendable. That's my trick.
All right, so ever since I've been here, you're always at the top as far as in this office, St. Rose, and St. Rose is the most productive office on the world, right?
Yes,
it's a unique office. There is 400 agents here too, but still.
It is. It's a great office, though.
Right, and you're always up there. So give them some tips, like in order to have a career like yours and be successful as long as you have, give them some of the things that you do to be successful as an agent, please.
So I think I was trying to think about, what would I tell somebody in terms of, think about what you can do or not do. And one of the best tips that somebody gave me a long time ago was that you cannot create a mess when there wasn't one. Meaning that when you deliver news to people, you're just delivering the news. You're Walter Cronkite, again dating myself. You're just giving someone an update. You're telling them what's happening. You don't have to lace every conversation with all of the negativity
and opinion
and emotion that you may have, but you can't do that when you talk to people because that's not your job. Right. Your job is to help people move forward, to find solutions to make that happen, and to control how you deliver news so that it's appropriate, right? And again,
great point.
That took a long time to learn, to be honest with you. When I was younger, that did not happen, but as I aged in the real estate world, that did happen.
You learn.
So I would say, so one, do your job in the sense of deliver the information that you have to deliver in the context in which it should be delivered, right? And I think the other facet of real estate that sometimes gets forgotten is that we sell houses. That's really what we do. We help people buy houses or sell houses. That's the tangible object. But really what we do is we help people accomplish a goal. So if you say to me, Francesca, I want to move to Florida because my kid's going to FSU and I want to be closer, then my job is to help you get to FSU, to Florida. Right. Now, in that, I'm probably going to have to sell your house because you live here and you want to buy a house in Florida. So can I help with both? Absolutely. Right. But that's why it's a two-part.
You have to know all the. Yeah. A lot of agents don't ask enough questions.
Yeah, I think that's accurate because we hear people and they talk to someone and they're like, oh, you want to buy a house, and that's where it stops.
I'm on my way.
Why? Why do you want to buy a house? Right. What's driving you? And not talking people out of it, although sometimes that happens because it is not the best thing for that person to buy a house potentially. But tell me more. Tell me what's happening. What's causing this to happen? Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And sometimes it's not exciting. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Right. But it's our jobs to figure that out and to help people. And and although we're not therapists, because most of us didn't go to school for that and don't have a degree, we are consultants.
Right.
Meaning,
no doubt.
Sometimes people talk to us and share things, share parts of their lives that are difficult, parts of their lives that are really happy. Right. And so we gain so much from that also, right? Because we're being let into a part of someone's world that probably not very personal. Get let into. It's very personal. Yeah. When you're in the car with someone and you're driving and you're having to ask them, so Rick, how much money do you make? Right. That's an odd question. You wouldn't walk up to someone on the street and go, so guy on the street, how much money do you make? Because that's weird. Right. But here we are in a car asking people questions that are really weird and really uncomfortable. Right. And it's our job to make sure that people understand why. It's almost like when you go to the doctor and they ask you, right? That's how you feel as an agent at first too, because you're not used to asking. It's just like, you gotta know. And it's tough. I think as a brand new agent, it's very difficult to learn that the questions you have to ask are questions that you're asking because they can better help people. Right. As I tell people, if we were just going out to a cup of coffee, none of this stuff matters. Right. But because you'd like me to help you find a house, there are questions I'm going to have to ask that I wouldn't ask you in the normal environment, right? So, absolutely. Yeah, and that's something that I think is hard for agents to learn or to understand that's going to be important. Absolutely, and like when I first moved to the company almost 10 years ago, we used to do coaching. I used to come to the office and meet you because I was still in Pebble. Remember those days? Oh yeah, wow, that was a long time. And one of the things I noticed right away about you is that you were very system-oriented and organized. That has not changed, other than perhaps, couple things at home, potentially like my garage, which I hate, but other than my garage, I would say I'm very organized. Even my closet, and my few friends that have been over will vouch. My closet is organized by color, by shirt sleeve length. Very, very you don't need organized. Ruler, do you? Potentially not. No. Yes, maybe. But it's very organized, and I do try to adhere to systems. I mean, nobody's perfect. Right. Everybody has something that they go, wow, I wish I could do that a little bit better. But we use an old program. I use a program called Top Producer, which is so old it used to be on, again, dating myself, a floppy disk. It was called Howard and Friends, I think, because it was invented by a guy named Howard, and he let his friends use it. Nothing. Howard Britton, I think. It was Howard Britton, as a matter of fact, yes. Wow. So
yeah,
you're getting
I remember him.
Yes, great guy. So I used that until it became top producer, and even though it is an old program, it works for what I need it to do. And we're constantly updating that and try to use systems as much as possible. Again, no perfection here. There's progress, but not perfection.
Right.
But try to make sure that we're doing things as consistently as possible, because the best way to replicate results is to have a duplicatable system, right? That if you say, I do these 5 things all the time, then you do them and you become better at them because your skill set improves. I mean, I think it's no different than what you probably talked about in the Success Series, where when you speak to somebody for the first time, you have what industry people call a script. What I have questions you ask people, right? What I call questions you ask people. But you have a list of questions that you ask routinely, so that you get better at asking them because they're important.
Right.
Not because they don't have any value, but it's the opposite. They have lots of value.
Right.
And that's a system.
Yeah.
Asking people the same questions routinely is a system.
It is.
Putting your data in the MLS in the order in which it comes up page by page is a system, even if you don't think it is.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to that end, I would say that I do have very, very good systems as a general rule.
Yeah, you're organized too, and I think that has a lot to do, I know that because I've been around here a while and around you, and I know that a lot of your business comes from your sphere, correct?
Yes, I would say most of it. I would say, now, not that we never get new people at all, but even the new people generally come as a result from the sphere. It's somebody from the sphere who says, I have a friend, I have a neighbor, I have a relative, I would like you to help them, and they will contact me. So even though it's a new person, it's somehow connected to one of my old people. Right. And I am one of those people that love my people. I have what I would consider the largest group of friends that came from real estate of anybody I know. And I have clients that, as I joke with people, I have clients that bought baby shower gifts when I was pregnant with Natalie and Alyssa. I have clients that helped drive around when we had some medical stuff that happened. And weirdly enough, I have a client that actually saved my life when I ended up in the hospital. Thanks, Mark and Suzanne. If it weren't
that wasn't too long ago, right?
Yeah, that was 10 years ago, actually.
10 years ago when I first got here, yeah.
10-year I didn't die anniversary. So, but if it weren't for Mark and Suzanne, I wouldn't actually be in the room today. So those people that sold houses have become people that are not only friends, but people who are such a big part of your world. And even if it's not daily, even if you don't talk to them every minute, they're still always there. So and I'm very fortunate because I don't know that everybody has had that, and so I consider myself very lucky. That
I think it has to do with the person. Like, you care, it's obvious. You dig deep. You want to know what's going on so you can help them, and that turns into a friendship, even like family, I would say.
A lot of my clients are really just so amazing, and really it's been much more than just a real estate career.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it truly is. It truly is. Yeah.
All right, great. So for the newer person, or maybe the person trying to get into the groove, like you've been in for a while, what would you give them? Give a couple of pieces of advice.
Sure. I would tell you that you can't control everything, and the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner that you just realize that there's only so much that you have under your direct control. It doesn't mean that you can't help, that you can't facilitate, that you can't organize or direct, but you cannot control. If the appraiser comes in with a value you don't like, you cannot control that. And you can address it, you can solve it, but and you can't get angry about it either, right? Because sometimes lack of control creates frustration and anger.
And it doesn't solve the problem.
It doesn't solve the problem. And it actually just makes everything else worse, right? So I'd say definitely learn that not all things are in your control. 2, as much as we'd like to think that the real estate trajectory of your career is this wonderful, we start here and it just goes up and up and up, and oh my goodness, we're just getting better and making more money and improving, and it's this beautiful straight line graph, right? And in the real world, it starts here and it goes, because we don't know what it's doing, because here we are in 2004, and the market's going up, and values are increasing, and wow, we had a 40% increase. It's never going to get worse. One day you wake up, what was it, like 2007-ish, like 2007, leading into 2008. One day we wake up and we're like, that number doesn't look good, and then it gets worse, and then it gets worse, and then it gets worse, and then all of a sudden you're in 2011, and there are no homes that are being sold that don't have to be short sold, because the market was, I think, like 88, 89% short sales.
Right.
In 2011,
30,000 homes on the market.
2000 through 13, right? I mean, right now we have about 3,300 when I checked the other day. I don't know where we're at today.
Which is really good.
But in 2012, in like January, February 2012, we had 32,000 homes on the market.
Yeah. And to think, when you started, average sale price 87, and in 2012, 11, it was 125.
That's right. So
it went all the way up to
different.
400.
That's right.
But that was a unique thing. And at that time in Vegas, a lot of second, third homes where it's a little different.
Sure, it's a very different market. I mean, there's movies that talk about it, but it's
Short,
just to my point. That was a great movie, by the way. But just to my point that your trajectory may not be
right. No, I agree.
It's going to be, but that's okay. The great news is every time that you have a swing back or a swing down or something crazy that happens, you learn so much about yourself, and you learn about adversity, and you learn about how to help people in a way that you didn't know how to help people yesterday.
Right.
And so I think if you look at it that way and you realize that trajectory is really just a word to talk about progress,
right?
That it really
because you could have changed your script back to, can I help you put away those pants now?
Change it to anything, right? Can I fold a sweater for you? Right?
No, you can't check my closet.
So that would be item number 2. I don't know. For my third tip that I would say to people, I would say that you never know what's going to happen from talking to someone. And, Mark used to always say, and this is one of his favorites, a couple of things that Mark always says, right? 1, get clarity. Sorry, Stark. 2, always take the meeting, right? Always take the meeting. And I think if we think about that in real estate, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't pre-qualify the person. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the steps that trainers and coaches and managers discuss with us to make sure the person's really viable. But once the person's viable, take the meeting. Yeah. You don't skip it because it's an inexpensive house and you don't think it's worth your time to go out there because you don't know that person doesn't own 55 houses. Right. So there's no reason to rule someone out, so to speak. We used to have something called the Meadows Mall. It was a kiosk. Nowadays they have them with people selling you like phone covers and little toys that walk around and things like that. But back then we had a kiosk for houses with one picture of a house and information, and you had to go to the Meadows Mall. It was required when you were a new agent, and you had to stand there and say, "Hi, Mr. Shopper, I see you're looking at a house. Is there something I can help you with?" Right?
Wow.
And it seemed so silly, and people would walk up to you and they were shopping. So what were they dressed like? They were shopping. Shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops. And so many agents wouldn't give people the time of day because they thought they didn't have money or couldn't really do anything. And then shockingly, some guy that walked up in shorts and flip-flops, was an investor that had, 107 houses. So you just never know. So I think that would be the third piece of advice is that, that the experience, the learning, the getting to talk to people, and really just getting to connect with someone is well worth the conversation. Yeah.
And I agree with you because I always say, the fiduciary responsibility is really just the golden rule on steroids. You do for them, you make them number one. And when you do that naturally, or even after, I had to work at it because I was not a great, with my ADHD brain, listener. I had to practice drill. That's why when I teach that in Success Series, I did it myself to become a great listener. Like I think you're naturally a better listener than I was. I know that for sure. So I think those are awesome points. Okay, and do you know this guy?
Hey, Troy.
I was going to pop in on a live. I'm like, do I pop in on a live or do I not?
We're doing a Facebook Live.
Oh, hey,
So funny. And then
thanks, Troy.
On that note, let's go with be genuine.
Yes.
When Troy comes in to hug you in the middle of a Facebook conversation, go for the hug because it's the way to go. And I think if you're genuine with people, one, it makes life so much more fun, so much more interesting. And sometimes genuine is, I'm genuinely annoyed. I mean, that's okay, right? It's not okay to yell, but it's okay to be genuinely annoyed. But it's also okay just to be genuinely happy for people, to be genuinely excited that someone got a house. To be genuinely thrilled that someone called you out of the blue and said, I would love for you to come over and have a glass of wine. Go have the glass of wine. If you don't drink wine, bring something you drink. But go over there, enjoy people. Just really realize that life is very short, and every time we talk to someone, every time we meet with someone, it fills us up in a way that we couldn't anticipate. So I don't know. That's kind of how I think.
I agree with you.
And I think it's worked.
Yeah.
So
Well,
far.
it's kind of like since we've started, I mean, one of the newest things for us is social media, and I know you've taken to it. And
Yes, a
being
little bit.
authentic
Not as much as you, but because it's hard to be authentic on social media. You want to get dressed up and have all the makeup done, and sometimes that's not real life. Sometimes you come from a run and you
Right.
want to talk to people and you look like you came from a run, and that's okay because that's genuine.
Right. Well,
So.
staying in shape is definitely a good
I
thing in real estate.
I
right?
agree.
I know you've been
Yes,
crazy about
I
it. That's
run.
great.
You and I talk about this. I run. I work out a little bit. I think it helps. I think it helps all those other things that we
It
just
really
talked
does.
about. It keeps you calmer. It keeps you saner, and it keeps you from overreacting because you have another avenue.
Right.
And it's good for you to have some stress relief and to be outside and to do all of those types of activities.
And Mark would love to hear it gives you more clarity.
It definitely gives you more clarity, Mr. Stark. That is for sure. So that is for sure.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Francesca, for taking your time out this morning to meet with us. This was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate being here, and to those of you who have not been doing this for 35 years, just keep plugging away, because if you just keep looking forward, you will be amazed at what can come your way. So that's my advice. Just get up every day, smile, laugh, try to make somebody else laugh, and have a great time doing it.
Absolutely.
So,
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.